Hi YouTube, this is Laura at Aquamarine18, just popping on quickly. You can probably tell that I'm sick, so I'm not going to talk for too long, but I was so excited that I just had to come on and make a video today. You'll tell maybe from the title what this is going to be about. I had posted a video back in late February in a response to the myfirsttarot tag, and in that video I talked about how I had had a deck of cards when I was young, or at least one deck of cards when I was young, one that I remembered for sure, but that it was kind of lost to time, right? That I couldn't find it, I didn't know where it was. If it was anywhere, it would be at my parents' house, which I haven't lived in for a very long time, but that I was hoping that I would one day find it. And you can tell from the title of this video that I found it. I went for the long weekend to visit my parents, and got back just on Monday. And while I was there, I got to look through a few big kind of bins of childhood things of mine that were there so that I could decide kind of what to do with it, bring it to my own home or throw out some things and so on. So I found a lot of gems in there, a pretty embarrassing CD collection if I'm quite honest. Lots of dance mixes in there, which is cool. I'm not embarrassed by those. There's some pretty bad ones in there though. A lot of photos, and wouldn't you believe it, the tarot deck that I remembered was in fact in there, and it was in a black velvet pouch that I had kept in. And now that I see this pouch, I do remember putting it in here, and I remember that this was a pouch that I had gotten, and it had a big, I felt at the time, ugly flower on it. So I'd taken that off and made a nice plain black pouch, and it's on a very long string here. And as soon as I saw it in the bin, I knew exactly what it was, and I was very, very excited. And looking at these cards over the past couple of days has brought back a lot of memories, and I'm looking forward to getting to know these cards again. So I had to do some sleuthing online to figure out what exactly my deck was, since any box or book is not, at least where I found the cards. It's not in the closet, it's not in the bins. All that was there was this bag. So, you know, I didn't have a publisher to go on, but I've done some looking, and Eclectic Tarot has come up with the solution for me. And it turns out that my first tarot deck was the Jonathan D. Tarot Pack, also known as a Tin of Tarot, published, and this is when I probably would have gotten it, in 2001. So I would have been 14 at the time, 13, 14, in 2001. So that sounds about right. So I found the deck, and it's actually a really cool deck, I think. This is a deck that I will totally use now. So here are the backs. They're this purple kind of repeating pattern, reversible. And my deck was shuffled for reversals. I don't really remember at 14 reading reversals, but I must have, or perhaps I just spun them around as I went, I'm not sure, but it was. And I'll show a few of the majors first. We have the Fool here, and I looked up and I wrote down the artist. The artist is Shirley Barker, says Eclectic Tarot. So the Jonathan D. Tarot Pack with Shirley Barker as the artist. The Magician. And they all have these quite colorful backgrounds. I really, really like the art style, actually. It's something that I would be very much gravitating to now. I like how colorful it is so much. And the deck has Rider-Waite-Smith numbering with strength at 8. It has all the traditional major arcana titles, with the exception the Hierophant here is the High Priest. Oh, that's the Emperor, but the Hierophant is the High Priest. There he is. And it's just a really cool deck. The card stock, I must say, I mean, in 2001, there wasn't kind of the plethora of decks perhaps that are around now. The cardstock is pretty sad, but they are in really good shape considering how much time that I spent with these. Really, really good shape. One or two of the cards were a little bit bent here and there, but I really like this green on the strength card. Really cool. So I am just thrilled to have found this deck. And I remembered the back of the decks being purple, and I remember purple being prominent, but searching for a kind of tarot deck with a lot of purple doesn't yield a lot of online results. So I ended up able to find this by using a Google image search. I took a close-up photo of just the Fool card and put it through, and there it was. So I feel really lucky to have been able to find the details. And we'll go through all of these, but I really like a lot of these cards. I really like, my favorite major arcana is the Moon. I don't really like faces on the moon and sun and star, but I do like that one. A lot of really cool imagery in this deck, I think. And the minors are really interesting, I think, in this deck. So I'll just separate them here to show them. I'm so excited. I was hoping that this would be my next video. I was hoping, and I really didn't expect to find these. And it feels really special to have them. It really does. Really excited. So the minor arcana in this deck are color coded. The wands all have this orange background, and they all have the number at the top and the suit at the bottom. The cups all have a blue background. The purple is for the swords, which is interesting. Swords, I think of swords as yellow in my mind, but here, actually, pentacles are yellow. So they all have this kind of background, and it seems like a really interesting kind of hybrid deck. Sorry, I'm kicking a cold. I'm just on the very, very end of it, and I'm a bit scratchy. So the numbering is Rider-Waite-Smith. A lot of the imagery is familiar as Rider-Waite-Smith, but the minors feel really Rider-Waite-Smith, Marseille, random pip arrangement, kind of hybrid. So it feels like when you go through the minors, if I start with the wands, and I always think of the wands coming first, I'm not sure why. The wands initially start feeling really Rider-Waite-Smith. Not exactly, but you can see here, for example, that is very definitely Rider-Waite-Smith informed. There's even a house here in the 4. And there's even a human figure in the 5, which I think is the only minor arcana, excluding the courts, that has a person. But the wands feel really, really Rider-Waite-Smith informed, right? 8 wands racing across the sky there. Anyway, and they go on. I'll just show the court since I'm here. So they feel really Rider-Waite-Smith, right? And if we only had the wands to go on, then we would think, yes, definite Rider-Waite-Smith style. But as you go through the suits, they kind of become less and less Rider-Waite-Smith. So in the cups, we get 4 and 5 of cups and 6 of cups. So there's really no hint of the Rider-Waite-Smith, is just a repeating cup, right, over and over again. you know, with little to nothing to gesture towards the Rider-Waite-Smith until we get into, you know, the courts, and then again we get, you know, some fairly familiar figures in there, right? So the cups is just kind of a repeated cup. The swords, again, a place we might expect to see the Rider-Waite-Smith imagery and often do. The Three of Swords, we don't. There's no heart to be found. And they start to look like a different system. They start to look a bit Marseille informed, but not consistently, right? Because then you get this. So these kind of arrangements of pips are really kind of, and the swords look different, right? There's kind of big curved ones and long pointy ones, really varied. And then we get again, you know, quite Rider-Waite-Smith, Knight of Swords charging in, the Queen looking off to the side, right? Finally, to show a few, shown the other three, into Pentacles, like very much not Rider-Waite-Smith at all in the Pentacles. The Pentacles perhaps has the least of all the Rider-Waite-Smith. Though we do get a few, you know, there's a little nod. There's a little nod here and there, but not much, right? Until we get to the courts again and we find the familiar imagery there. So it's a really interesting kind of, perhaps it's an early, I feel like now, particularly with kind of increasing popularity of pip decks, increasing popularity of Marseille decks, we have seen over the past couple of years more and more decks that the minors kind of have this, they're pips, or they're not quite pictorial or scenic minors, but they have those kind of nods to Rider-Waite-Smith type scenic minors in them, but they're not quite. And this is almost this, in some of the suits, this almost feels like an early kind of iteration of something like that. Unless it's referring to something else that I don't know at all. But that is the Jonathan D. Tarot pack. And this was, for real this time, my first tarot. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.